Good morning, good morning, good morning. There we are. We are ready. So this morning while I was pondering this particular Wednesday morning live, I was thinking about how it is that we have a story in our culture that children are resilient. And the reason I object so much to this is because they're not. Children are often silent about what is going on for them, but they are not actually resilient. I have a story that kind of illustrates what happens here. Kids have something big happen, a move, a daycare change, a friend that they adored disappears, and parents are just inclined, or a loss of a pet, loss of a grandparent. Parents are inclined to say, oh, kids are resilient, they'll be fine. And lots of other people will say that with them. A whole bunch of people are like, oh, no, it's okay, children are resilient. They're not. A long time ago for me, a friend of my daughter's, a guy that she worked with, had broken his back in a hiking accident or something. Now, he didn't know he broke his back. He fell, he hurt himself, it hurt a lot. He wasn't surprised, it was a long fall. And he walked around on it for 6 weeks thinking it will get better because it'll get better. Bodies heal, it's fine. And what he ended up with is a permanent injury that damaged his spinal cord in a couple of places. He's got some permanent neuralgia and numbness as a result. And he is in chronic, constant, all the time pain because the vertebrae shifted a little bit and poking things that are tender and delicate. And this, I think, is a really good illustration of what we mean when we say, or what we accidentally mean when we say children are resilient. He didn't go to medical care. He didn't go find out if his back was fine. He decided it would be fine. And it wasn't fine. And it healed for sure. Unfortunately, it healed in such a way that it created a tremendous amount of lifelong pain. And there's nothing that can be done about it at this point. The surgery is still too blunt to be able to deal with such incredibly fine detail in his vertebrae to be able to smooth the edges and not do further damage. It's an extremely dangerous surgery and it's not been deemed worth it. But what this means is the same kind of thing that I mean when I say children are not resilient. Children are, well, they're not resilient. They're completely open to what happens to them. They experience life in a kind of moment-to-moment ongoing basis. But if something injures them, yes, they move on. Yes, they may not talk about it again. But if they don't get the support and healing that they need, they're walking around on a healed, broken back. Bessel van der Kolk wrote The Body Keeps the Score. And I think this is probably the best image of that. Yes, they may not mention it. Yes, it might very slowly or even very suddenly change their personality a little bit or change their reactivity to things. But that means that underlying everything else, there's something that's poking them in a tender place. And until that thing has been removed and stops poking them in that tender place, they're still being affected by what happened to them. Often, unfortunately, children absorb the idea that because shocked silence was taken as "you're fine," they're not allowed to talk about it. So they don't have any way of bringing up the conversation that says, oh, right, when my gerbil died in front of me, I was shocked and I didn't know what to say. And after that, I always wondered if somebody else was going to die in front of me. And all the time, I was constantly worried about somebody else dying in front of me. But because the parents are like, oh, they're fine, or their teacher told them they're fine, or their friends told them they're fine, or their grandparents told them they're fine, because they've been told they're fine, they have this split in themselves. They know that they're fine because they've been told, and their body is saying, you're not fine. They don't have any way of integrating those two things. I should probably introduce myself. I'm Linda Clement. I'm a parenting coach, and I help parents connect with their children on a real level so that when their children experience things like this, they can support them, be what Dr. Phil calls their soft place to fall, and heal from the things that happen to them. It's very important to remember that children are not resilient. They cannot be made resilient. They are born open, completely open to the world. And as things hurt them and injure them, they close up. And then they become like us. We're all closed up. We don't talk about our anger. We don't talk about our grief. We don't talk about our sadness. We don't talk about our frustrations. We are inclined to talk about our anger, especially guys. Women are more inclined to talk about their sadness. It's that tangling of emotions, because we have all this stuff in our bodies that has just been closed off. And it's all in there, all waiting to be expressed. So when something goes off, they explode, or they melt down. They cry tremendously at some slightly touching Hallmark movie, or the unfortunate little child who had obviously had something bad happen in her life that had frightened her a little bit, that I watched in Land Before Time, the very first theater release of it. This little 3-year-old in the seats ahead of us, who, once the parents died, went into mourning and didn't come out of it for the whole rest of the movie. She cried, sobbed her heart out for the whole movie. Her aunt or her friend or whoever it was that she was with kept trying to point to the fact that, she's got friends. Oh, there's other people taking care of her. Oh, there's her parents in the clouds and spirits. They're still around. And she's like, not having it. She was not having it. We need to recognize that when kids have a shock or a loss, that it doesn't magically go away because they don't talk about it. It's often that they don't have the words for it. And it's often, very often, that they've absorbed a taboo. We just don't talk about this stuff. And that's why we are walking around with all this stuff inside us, with our bodies expressing for us what it is that we haven't talked about. So I am Linda Clement, and this is Wednesday Morning Live. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, if you'd like me to talk about anything else, or if I've confused you in my rambling about this subject, please leave a comment or direct message me. And otherwise, have a great day, and I will see you next Wednesday morning live